beautiful, beautiful brothers and sisters. I am Geeia Ariati. Welcome to this conversation and this expression of where we confuse ourselves with what is enlightenment, what is spirituality, and where we bind ourselves in constructs and limitations through the concept of the limited human mind and our judgments of what that is and how we become it and attain it. So if you have not received one of my transmissions before, I am an oracle, I am a conduit, so what you will feel, sense, perceive is a lot of energetic recalibration, rewiring. Parts of your DNA strands might come online, energy shifts, remembrances, different tingles. You may even feel a sense of your kundalini activating. So that would be normal for any interpretations through beyond the human lens of the communication and into the energetics of the unseen. In regards to that, make sure that you are somewhere that you can receive this that is safe for your body to respond open and move through what is here for you, and to have those aha profound moments, and allow yourself to receive this in the most aligned way for your current human experience. I am of sound heart and sound mind, and I am extremely excited to talk to you about something that I traversed as a human being and continue to traverse into greater awareness of how much of our reality is based on a distortion and constructs of what actually is true and real. What is what is spiritual? What is enlightenment? What is this reality? What is life? And the constant unfolding into greater expansion and recognition of source, seeing source in form. And it has been a beautiful, painful, and tragic journey into the freedom and the sovereignty of my soul. And so what I want to share about specifically is around the concept of before enlightenment chopwood, after enlightenment chopwood. And it is a statement that comes up and is re-gifted to me over and over and over again in the awareness of things as they continue to unfold into greater depth and greater depth and greater depth of the fullness of what we have as a capacity as human beings that are our spiritual source essence, and in this unfolding of truth. So one of the parts of my soul contracts and the commitment that I've made to these beautiful brothers and sisters of the soul family is that I would basically be one of the first to break down the paradigms and the constructs of this reality through trial and error, and through basically hitting the brick walls and going, guys, you don't have to do it this way. I did it this way, but you don't have to. And so the paving of the path to show a different pathway to enlightenment, attainment, Christos, to becoming self-realized, and to that level of soul commitment for the reason that we have come to earth to be in service, is by there is always someone, and there is always individual people that have to choose to walk the path first, right? This is just this is an undeniable truth. This is just how life is. We can't manipulate that as much as we would like to. There are certain truths that are just the truth, and you can try and rearrange it as much as you like and dissect it, but when it comes down to it, these are objective truths, and they are just solid as they are, and this is one of them. So as a being that has decided to come here first, I've decided to create a lot of contrast in my life experience to understand, to learn, and to remember, and to reconcile the distortions within my own consciousness to provide a new path forward. In that, one of the aspects has been to actually break down the paradigm and the construct of spiritual attainment or enlightenment and what that is. Because in our reality, we have a whole lot of beings that, well, not a whole lot, but there is a lot of beings that speak to spirituality in a specific way of being very zen, you're one with everything, you're in this gentleness, but they don't speak to a lot of things beyond this point of oneness, this samadhi point. They speak around coming to attainment and opening all 7 chakras and being able to be infinite consciousness and in the void all at once. But the level of awareness of what that actually is and what that means in the human experience, once you let go of the separation point you just experience, that doesn't get spoken into. I haven't heard anyone speaking into that because there are very few limited beings that are actually living that. So when you get to a point of enlightenment or attainment, you can stay there. Now, for me, the very first time that I experienced attained samadhi, or the beautiful samskara, what do they call it? Is it samsara? I'm like, is that what it's called? See, I don't use these terminologies, but from that place of stepping out of the illusionary experience and into the wholeness of the true self of source, and in that transcendence, I was in absolute bliss, absolute divine grace. I knew that everything that my mind had said or against me, and everything that I knew in my body was possible, that I had met that point. There was an undeniable knowing in every aspect that I had met transcendence of the separation point, and that I was in one with source. And my thoughts shifted. I was unable, when it happened to me, I couldn't actually really open my eyes for 2.5 weeks. I couldn't communicate with human beings. I didn't know how to express because my brain was unable to find the words for the frequency that I was in. My brain was unable to express the language of what I was experiencing, and it was a whole new expression or experience for me at that time, and it was so different to what I had been. The evolution in the frequency and that of unlocking and opening to that much self-truth and source was such a vibrational shift that my physical body didn't know how to function, but it was just divine. And I could have sat in that space forever. And so what's interesting about that is that a lot of the teachers and individuals are sitting in this space, and they're staying in that attainment of this point. Now, not too many are evolving beyond that. They're actually mastering their wisdom, and they're solidifying that, and they're being in the attained point of transcendence of human ego. Now, there are other levels, as we have spoken into over different spiritual teachings, that there are layers of samadhi, there are layers of enlightenment, there are layers of meeting new senses and perspectives of self. It is infinite, and we could see infinite lenses of ourselves through this experience. And with that, it's a beautiful awareness that a lot of our spiritual teachings are talking about attaining and stopping effectively at that point of transcendence and staying in the peace and the zen of what that is. Now, that is a very gentle and beautiful place, and you could sit there very easily. Now, the first message that I received when I came into that, and I was not very functional, and it would have taken me quite a bit of time, and has taken me a lot of time to get to the point that I'm in now, so that I can open my eyes, speak to you, and be in life without the confusion of what I was experiencing, is that well, it wasn't confusion. It was more that the physical vessel was confused on how to interpret what I was experiencing as a glitch, I guess you could call it, and the glitch between the consciousness and the vessel and how they marry and merge. And so in this period for me, the very first message I received from Source in that point was, don't become so comfortable you forget where you are going. Now, that message, had I have not received that, I could have absolutely. There was no desire to do anything. There was no desire to create anything. There was no desire to speak anything. There was no desire to be anything other than what I was being. I was just in being. No thought, no need, no nothing. And I had experienced moments of this through different transcendental experiences that had opened and initiated and activated me into this. However, there was a recognition at that point, oh, I could just stay here. I wouldn't really create much. And I wouldn't really be of service in the way that I know that I'm here for, because I knew everything at that point as well. Because you're sitting in infinite knowing, and you would look at something and you would receive all of the information of that. Now, and there are still stages of full integration of that for me to be able to be that connected with waking eyes and being in the world. And that is it's integrated, but it's still solidifying in the way of expressing that through the human realm. Now, what it took me to get to that, what it took was the human experience, looking at all of my pain, looking at all of my trauma, going into, I knew for me, transcendence was my goal. It was my aim. I am going to reach a state of enlightenment. I am going to do whatever it takes to get to that point of consciousness, of oneness. And I knew that was what my mission was. That was what my purpose was. And anything in the way or anything I was creating was really just for me to get to that point. I was using everything in my experience to see myself, to undo myself, and to understand the human psyche. So I would analyze everyone and everything to come into that point to undo my own distortions and separation points. And it was my obsession, and it was my devotion. And so everything that I did was to step out of the suffering and the separation point. Now, through this experience, and for many, you hear, and this is the monk lifestyle, which is not as sustainable or it's not an evolved expression in totality, is that you abstain or suppress or disconnect from certain things that cause your mind to wander or cause desire or cause attachment. And so it is the theory of life without attachment. Now, attachments, this is truth, is to step away from all attachments, good or bad, and to allow yourself to detach from the need from them so that you can actually embrace them. And so there's a confusion that happens of when you allow yourself, as you're going through this process of clearing and purification, and you start to look at your experience, you go, okay, that's not spiritual. That comes from my ego. That's not a healthy behavior. This is not something that I can do anymore. And you'll go through your life experience and you'll step away from things as you're clearing and purifying. So when you start to be spiritual, you might stop, wearing makeup. When you start being more spiritual, you'll be resistant to TV or radio, or you stop watching the news, or you step away from certain friends. You might not club anymore. All of these things that we experience as this isn't spiritual, and this is not aligned with my highest self or my full being. Now, is that actually true, or is it that where it's coming from and the energetic expression of where you are creating that experience is not aligned with your highest truth? That's the answer. It's not that any experience on earth is not spiritual. It's the intention and the energy and the consciousness that creates it. So for many of us, we have been creating from our ego, from our lack of confidence, from our insecurity, from our woundings, from our need to be validated, for all aspects of ourselves that we are just so desperately desiring to be filled by outside sources and outside experiences. And so what we do is we start to call our energy home, and in that we reject the experience. We reject the human experience in the coming back to self, and we make much of the human experience wrong, where it's not the human experience that is wrong. It's that there was a misalignment and a distortion of the truth as to why the experience was created. So I've had many of these, and I'm happy to share a few of them in relation to this. So when I started to look into consciousness and spirituality, I was a makeup artist. I used to train 6 days a week. I was very, very fit, very I guess some would say, what would you call that? Materialistic. I really enjoyed fashion, clothes, beauty, and I started to go into spirituality and spending time with these gypsy girls that had all of their earthy clothes and their natural jewelry and these crafted crystals and all of these things. And what came through for me was, all of the things that I've been doing mustn't be spiritual, mustn't be conscious. I should be more aware of X, Y, and Z, and I need to stop doing certain things because that's not in integrity to what I'm learning to be in myself. And so there was a self-judgment program that came up, and I took away certain aspects, and I dumbed and dulled myself down to fit a specific narrative of what I believe to be spiritual, a woman in spirituality, and shifted my expression to fit that whilst I was navigating my internal experience, while I was navigating my belief systems, while I was doing intense amounts of shadow work of who am I and what is my truth and why am I so broken. And as I was clearing these belief systems, as I was releasing this distorted consciousness, I was starting to navigate certain things were. I was not willing to give them up. Things like shaving my legs and coloring my hair, certain aspects of my reality were a part of what felt good, and I started to understand frequency and vibration and dressing and adorning and self-love and the act of honoring the body, and all of these pieces that allowed me to see a little bit more of what was true and a little bit more of where it was distorted and a little bit more confused. And so there was a journey with appearance that went through many layers, and then as I moved through I did stop coloring my hair for 2 years. I actually didn't get it cut. It went very curly, and it was a beautiful stage of my growth to actually strengthen my hair and to have a new expression of my body and to allow myself to form itself in its own different, more natural expression. And as I moved through all of these distortions and started coming into the authentic self, I reclaimed and realized that so many things that I was doing before that I suppressed them were actually a part of who I am. I am a woman that loves beauty. I am a woman that absolutely is inspired by fabrics, by color, by the expression of glamour. I am in my vivaciousness when I get to dress up, when I get to express myself in my clothing and in my adornment, when I get to honor the goddess that I am. And so as I went through the attainment process on the other side, there was things that I re-navigated. And I was like, okay, now that I don't have attachments to makeup, now I don't have attachments to my appearance, now that I see my vessel as a vessel and not a body, I don't have there was no story that I had to look a certain way. There was no story that I had to receive attention. There was all of these things had dissolved, completely disappeared. And I saw the vessel for the advanced, universally intelligent machinery that it is. And that's how I see the vessel, as this absolutely magnificent organism that holds galactic consciousness, and that I see it in the wonder and the awe for every part of that which it holds, each cell, and the magic that is encoded in us. And so I perceived myself that way, and then I started to see that I can also dress my vessel up, and I can also play with my vessel, and I can also reshape my vessel, and I can start to use magic on my vessel. And so there was a question that came up around Botox. And this is one that many spiritual conscious people have an opinion on. And I have had some very projected thought forms around my appearance and my look, and absolutely honor every single projection, because I understand, because I've dissected it inside, outside, upside down. And I sat with the truth, and I asked Source for the truth around it. At first I was like, okay, is it of contribution to me to get Botox? And when I was looking at this, and I was looking at what is healthy and what isn't, and all of these stories that have been created, and one of the answers that I got at the time around Botox was that the amount of suffering that was coded into my face, and the amount of frowning and pain that had been imprinted into my frown, into my face, and into my expression, would be of assistance to receive Botox, to allow it to soften and to start to choose a new expression that is beyond the past karmic truth that I've lived in this incarnation. Now that changed my paradigms and my thought forms around things, to go, oh wow, this is more than aesthetic. This is actually a cellular memory of my frown, and the pain that I experienced in my human experience is imprinted into my cells, into my muscles. And that by using this human contribution tool, I can actually rewire and recalibrate my cells in a way that expresses who I am now. Because I'm not that. And my body was still expressing that I was. And so I started to ask questions and be very truthful. No attachment. How can I do this? If this is something that, what is the truth around this? And so I had not had my lips filled for 2.5 years. And because of all of the reasons, all of the spiritual reasons. Don't put that stuff in your face. It's poison. Da 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 da. You should love yourself as you are. You know, all of those things that I looked at, worked through, met myself. Every single core belief, everything that you could possibly find within this consciousness has been overturned and met in tears and in joy. And so with that, I made a choice, and I asked, is it of contribution to get my lips filled? I like to push boundaries with Source, if you haven't figured that out already. And the answer was no. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I won't. And then I was like, hang on, how come? Why is it a no? Why is it not a contribution? Now, we do not ask enough questions. That has been a message that has taken me much training to come into. And the answer was, if you get your lips done, you're going to stop coding your face energetically and realigning it with your light technology. You will get lazy, and you will rely on your human tools rather than the medicine that you are. And I was like, yep, you're right. You are right. So Source, because this is how it is in my reality. And some of these conversations that you would witness in me bartering or trying to maneuver consciousness to how I want to create the reality while still honoring and getting a truthful, I don't have to sacrifice if I see the truth. What is that? And the answer and the conversation that was had was, okay, if I continue to work on coding my vessel and aligning my vessel so it can hold the highest frequency and reshaping it through my medicine, through my capacity, my ability to ask my cells to come into the most aligned expression of my spirit and I work on the restructuring of my jaw and releasing the cellular trauma and the aspects of ancestral distortion, and I commit to doing that and commit to self-love in that way of consciousness, then what will happen? Can I do it then? And I was like, of course, because then you are being in your truth. And by doing that, you're also transmuting any of the toxins, the chemicals, or any aspect of your own vessel that may have had a distortion that would have created a reaction or something that was not aligned with your inner being. So that's just one of the stories around before enlightenment, chop wood, after enlightenment, chop wood. Things that we don't talk about. Things that we are trained not to question. Things that our brains have been separated and dissected and manipulated, that we think that something is this, but it's actually not. And it's not this, and it's not this, it's actually this. We get to have it all. That is the most beautiful thing about heaven on earth, is that you don't have to sacrifice anything. You don't have to suppress, get rid of, destroy. Some things you may not want to choose because it gets to a point that you're like, oh, well, that actually doesn't actually serve any value to me. I'm not going to be in that experience because I don't enjoy it. It doesn't feel good in my body to do that. I could do it. I could come to that point of consciousness where I could, but do I want to? Now, one of the other things that has happened more recently, and it's a nice exposure piece, and I love exposing myself because this is vulnerability. This is authenticity. This is where you can resonate to my experience and go, interesting. Now, I've been blessed with an extremely intelligent mind, brain, consciousness, capacity, ability to question everything and to see beyond what most do. I'm a seer, an oracle. I have a very expanded consciousness, and I'm here to interpret that and gift it to human beings in a tangible way that makes sense. And so some of these ideas that I had when I was going through and aiming to get to a transcendence was, the question was, what are you afraid of will happen if you let go of your identity and your ego? Like, what if you had no ego? Who would you be without that? And my fear, and my biggest fear, was I won't have a relationship. Now, my drive has been my relationship with God, self, another. There's many layers to that because I have a very strong knowing that I'm here to change the world with a divine counterpart. Now, that has been some awfully big initiations and quite a lot of pain in that, because that divine counterpart ain't here. And that's okay. It will happen in the time that is ready, or maybe it won't. Because I've actually got to a point where I don't need to hold on to that anymore to see myself and to see my capacity with consciousness and to give humanity a new path. But it did serve me. And so when I was asking around letting go of my ego, when I was asking what was it that I was afraid of, that I was so attached to this identity, it was, without that, who is going to relate to me? Who is going to desire to be with me if I'm that spiritual, if I'm that connected? Like, I'll have no quirks, I'll have no personality, I'll be boring. Now, this is exactly what separation and ego consciousness and the brain does for familiarity. It tells you fiction so that you stay in that place of comfort. Now, it is not boring. And I have the most personality and the most quirks and the most weirdness I've ever had in my life, because this is my authentic expression. But the idea that I couldn't have a relationship was what was holding this identity in place. And so I had to come to a point where I was okay being sovereign and connected to source with or without a relationship. That was a hard journey for me because I was so attached to love. I was so driven to change through my relationships. Relationships have been my greatest initiator and my greatest pain, my greatest gift, but also the absolute frustration of my human being. I have many stories around relationships that I hope one day I get to share. And so there is and was this challenge that occurred for me of, okay, well, I have to come to a point where I am absolutely in full allowance, acceptance, and trust of the relationship with God in oneness, that if I don't have one, I'm absolutely okay with that, for me to release that. Now, that was a sticky one for my identity, and I came to that, and guess what? Beautiful relationships started to come into my life. Soul relationships, relationships that actually held transcendence codes. Now, I have a beautiful brother that was a gift to me in that transcendence. We held sacred union. Sacred union is a relationship that activates and begins the journey to transcendence through another. And I will be forever grateful for him. However, we are not in sacred partnership. We served our purpose to see ourselves. We served our purpose to humanity in what we gifted. And so now, where I sit, do I need a relationship for my purpose? Absolutely not. Do I want one? I actually don't care. Do I enjoy intimacy? Of course, like anyone. I'm a human. I like to be touched. That is a part of my personality. I love love. I love love. I love giving someone my love. I love having a focus of attention where I can pour my love into someone. But I can also pour that into humanity. I can pour that into each and every client that I work with. I can pour that into myself. I can pour that into life. So I don't need a focus of attention. That I have transcended that concept, and that allows for a space for something or someone to come in, which is beautiful because it allows me to meet a person who's really willing to meet me in that. So what was one of the interesting things about that is I love love. And so as I was purifying and releasing these ideas and these stories of sexuality and intimacy and going through polyamory and ethical non-monogamy and am I in union and what is this? I've been told by source that I'm to have two, be in a what do you call that? A trinity relationship. So like a tri of like a man and two women. And I'd had all these visions and all of these concepts and looking at them inside, outside. What is the truth here? What is the truth? The truth is to let go of all of it and allow it to unfold and to be able to just experience. And this is before enlightenment, after enlightenment. Same thing, different perspective lens. And so I don't have a story now. Am I supposed to be in a union of two? Don't know. What does Source want for me? Am I supposed to be in a throuple? Don't know. What does Source want for me? But now I get to experience things that I did from a place of lust, desire, need, validation, codependency, father wounding, unworthiness, mother wounding. That I had used my sexual energy to get my needs met, that I had seduced beings so that I didn't feel alone, that I had manipulated my partners to grow, that I had gone through all of these layers through relationship and through my sexual explorations. And I came to a point where I was like, no relationship, no sexual explorations. We are suppressing that. We are clearing. We cannot have anything come into this temple unless it is of God, Source Creator. It has to be that pure to enter my temple. Which worked. And it was great. It allowed for me to purify my satanic energies that were imprinted. It allowed me to release the descended consciousness. It allowed me to meet the Isis consciousness and clear and purify her pain and the distortions of sexuality and sexual alchemy. It was able to become pure in my cellular structure, my root chakra and my sacral, to such a divine expression of source. And then on the other side of that, what came through? Well, interestingly enough, when I came here to Bali to write my book, which I am not writing because apparently it was a reason to get me here, to make change, and that it allowed for the space for me to choose a different, more contribution at this point in time, opportunity, showing up in places like this, to start to open to worldwide arenas, to share these insights, to awaken minds, to shift the paradigm of this reality. And so my focus lens shifted to that of what Source desired and not what my story was. And in that, I was asking, before I came to this, before it was there was a push. I had to push myself to sit down and write this book. Now I don't do life like that anymore. Why was it so hard? Oh, because you're pushing against flow, source flow, changing, evolving, shifting in every moment. You cannot plan for the future. You can be aware of where you're going and know that source will line you up to exactly where you need to be, and to be in flow with that. But also to be disciplined enough in your masculine expression of anchoring to know exactly what action to take at exactly the right time. And so in that, I was sitting asking, okay, what is the most contribution for me to write this book? And I was getting, and I do this, I sit in what is called a quantum business session. Amazing. You want to write your business plan, you want to know your avatar, do it this way. Far more effective for you to have a successful business. So I was sitting in a quantum business session with myself and asking exactly what my routine needed to be to support this book writing, what I needed to structure from the place of my inner being, from my soul's knowing, from source guidance, not from here. Very different. Feeling it, activating, clearing. And the message, when I got through, diet, sleep, all these things, different structures, how long to write, how long to do this, and I get to the end and I'm like, there's something else. What is it? And it was to get intimacy twice a week. Oh, how am I going to do that, God? Like, source, how really, how am I going to do that? This body is so fucking pure. There is no one worthy of being in here, right? No one worthy of being in here. I'm not in a relationship. How am I going to get intimacy twice a week? What do? Jump back on Tinder? I did, right? Interesting. The enlightened mind, the self-realized self, before would never have thought, ever in a million years, that I would jump on Tinder at this point in my journey. That I would connect with beings in the way that I have, because I had already decided what spirituality and enlightenment was, and self-expression, and what human experiencing is. It is not that. It is far different. So before enlightenment, Tinder. Definitely a different experience to after enlightenment, Tinder. But in that intimacy, and that opening of, okay, I have to look at what is actually true again, because I've evolved and I am here. And what was able to be experienced was opening myself to receiving without story, to receive from the pureness of what is of flow and contribution to my experience, when it's felt in every aspect and that it is guided. Now, I got to tick off something on my bucket list as a human being, something that I was like, I'm so curious. I want to experience that one day. And it was something that I was like, oh, I knew that if I did at any point before then, it was not going to go well. And it would have been done from a place of ickiness. It would have been done from a place of not meeting the fullness of myself. And that was to receive a sensual happy ending massage, right? It was like, I'm gonna experience this. I want to experience this if it ever felt true in my being. If it ever came into my vortex and felt true, then I would experience it. Now, I went through an experience where I got to experience that. Now, I never, past tense, would have thought that I would experience what I did. I never would have experienced or perceived that a place could be so clean and clear that was acting in that way. I used to work in the adult entertainment industry, and I definitely wasn't clean and clear and pure, and my workplaces did not feel like that. Energetically, they were not clean. This energetically clean massage parlor or therapy space was so environmentally and energetically clean. There was no demonic energy. There was no addiction. There was no drugs. There was no Satanism. There was no aspect of feeding. It was actually a completely different experience to what I had experienced in my previous past lives of this kind of environment. And the individual that was there was honoring of my being and wanted to gift me, we'll say pleasure, but love. She wanted to gift me love. She wanted to gift me an experience of connection, to please, but from a place that was pure within her being. And why did I experience it like that? Because that's what my vibrational experience is. That I've chosen that I am only going to live in flow, love, and of the most purest expression. So that every single being that comes into my vortex is aligned to that same intention. That I'm here for pure creation. That I'm here for truth. That I'm here for honor. That I'm here for respect. I don't receive disrespectful experiences. I don't experience contrast. Not in the way that I used to. I might receive an opportunity to look at something deeper, but I don't have things happen that cause me suffering anymore. Discomfort, ickiness, yuck. That just doesn't experience in my reality because I know what I am and where I have come to. So I can be in life. Now, will I go and have another sensual happy ending massage? I don't think so, right? I can't say that I won't, because in this moment, it's this moment. In this moment, I don't feel called to or desire to experience that again. It held its service. It gifted me honoring, it opened my body, it was a healing, and it gifted me intimacy in a way that I'd never experienced before, to be the full receiver in that way. And in this moment now, I have other things that I am desiring to create, expand, and break paradigms on. So my consciousness is, where else have I limited myself and humanity through my own thought forms of what I can and cannot do? Where else am I opening to the ascended mastery beyond the construct of what this is? And so that's exciting for me. That's where I want to put my energy. That's where I want to allow myself to focus on change. Is the word transcendence, the word enlightenment, before and after. How do we merge them together so that we're not doing it through polarity? How do we start to really see from a point of neutrality, self, so that you don't have to swing like I did? So you don't go into the contrast to find the purity through the suppression, through the disconnection, through the this and that, the push, the pull. What if you could choose that here and now? What if you can choose through what I share, through my journey, to awaken this within you, to ask more questions, to be in more connection to self, to have the intention to come through from truth and not from illusion, to not initiate yourself through contrast, but instead through joy. What would be possible then? So this idea, which is quite funny, to the unconscious, unawakened mind is, this is what life is. It is a container, it is entrapment, it is control. And when you move beyond that, you realize that none of it was real. Not one concept that you have ever aligned to or agreed to is true. There's truth in it, but it's also full of illusion. And when you step out of the illusion and you start to live the dream, you recognize the truth and you let go of the illusion, which allows you to live a life of pure divinity. I desire for each and every one of you to live a life of pure divinity. Thank you for receiving this vulnerable transmission. I don't know if vulnerability is even a thing. I just feel like vulnerability, it is what it is now. I don't get vulnerable. I'm not exposed. I don't feel a sense of, oh, this is hard. Most of the time it's just sharing what's alive, and it feels real to do so. It was hard. It was vulnerable. But when you live in vulnerability, it just is. And it's fun. Thank you for receiving this transmission. If you align and agree, if you align and resonate, see, every now and then I have a tweaky energetic field thought that pops in and I have to transmute it. If you align and resonate to my message, please like, subscribe, tag, share, and comment and engage. Engagement helps with censorship and allows for other people that are resonating and desiring to hear this information for it to come up through the beautiful algorithms of social media. If you are desiring to support my mission, please place a donation into the donation link in my link tree. I will greatly receive, and I will continue to give back regardless, because it's coming from a full cup. I love you, I love you, I love you, Ahava, and have an amazing day or evening wherever you are in the world. Bless you.